To the June 17th, 2025 meeting of the Ann Arbor Parks Advisory Commission. This meeting is being conducted electronically and will be broadcast live on CTN cable channel 16 and on a2gov.org/watch CTN. To speak at public comment, call toll-free 877-853-5247 or another of the published numbers on the agenda and enter meeting ID 959-7872-3467. All right, and I understand that Scott Spooner is our point person today. So Scott, would you mind calling the roll, please?
Absolutely. Commissioner Bush,
Present in Detroit.
Commissioner Cavateo,
Present in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Marson,
I'm here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Montague, Commissioner Perlowski,
Present in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Skyless,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Smith,
Present in Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Radina, Councilmember Watson.
Here in Ann Arbor.
And you do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Are there any requested changes to the agenda? Not seeing any, the agenda is approved. Which brings us to first public comment. To speak at public commentary, follow the instructions to raise your hand and indicate that you would like to speak. We allow 3 minutes per speaker. We do not respond in the moment to speakers, but we appreciate you taking the time to call in and share your thoughts with us. Do we have any callers?
No callers for public commentary.
All right, thank you. Number 5 on our agenda is approval of the minutes. You should have those in front of you. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting? Thank you, Larry. Do we have a second? Thank you, Therese. Any discussion or corrections on the minutes? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Number 6, 6A, we have a presentation on the pop-up dog park at Veterans Park, an update on it, and that will be done by Josh Landefeld.
Hello, everybody. As I am going to be talking an awful lot during this meeting, I thought it would be a good opportunity to have Scott take the dais and take the lead on it. So I'm going to talk about the pop-up dog park at Veterans Memorial that took place this past winter to kind of give you an update on kind of the feedback we received on it, some of the things we learned, as well as some of the next steps that we have on it. So I do actually have a presentation, so we're going to share this. Share. Hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Yes, I can see it.
All right. So all the pictures are from our fun kickoff event that we held at the beginning of it. Go through this, and so just some basic information about the dog park. It was open for 151 days. We opened it up on November 15th of 24 and went all the way through April 20th of 25. So it was just over 6 months. What we found, and we ended up adding a counter at the entrance gate to the park, and unfortunately, we had a single counter which counted people multiple times. What we learned from there is if you walked in with a dog and a partner, you probably got counted 2 or 3 times, one in, one out. So it wasn't the most scientific way, but what we found is that we had about a total of 16,300 visits to the dog park over those 151 days, which equate to about 108 visits daily to the park. We realized that between the opening and January, we had slightly more visits per day. combination of weather, holidays, variety of different things that would play into that. And obviously, as we headed into the spring, we also dealt with a little bit wetter, muddier weather as opposed to cold and snowy at times. So really good use of the park. Really, really a positive interaction with it. Like I said, the way that we did it is we took the total number of clicks that we got on the counter, and based on kind of some site views, we divided that number by 5 is how we got to the individual to the number of 16,300. Some of the data associated with it, we did really see use throughout our hours of operation. It kind of varied based on day of and weather, but really was very well utilized, and definitely a positive one. Following the closure of the dog park, we sent out two surveys, one to dog park users, and another one to residents nearby. And so I'll go over some of the discussions about that here in a second. From the survey from the dog owners, we got about 105 responses, which we're very happy about. Of that, 62% of the respondents live within a mile of Veterans Park. So obviously, what we're seeing is a large percentage of people that are coming from the west side of the park. Although we do know that people were coming from other parts of Ann Arbor. One thing that we did find out is that over half of the people that responded that used the dog park did not have a permit prior to using the dog park. We don't have the exact data of how many additional dog park permits we had compared to last year, but that's something that we're going to be looking into it. But 44% of the people did have dog park permits prior to the opening. Where it's really exciting and getting 100 people to agree on anything is always a bit of a challenge, but we had about 98% of the respondents feel very supportive in bringing back a dog park to the same location at Veterans Park in the future. And then 100% said they would recommend the pop-up dog park to other dog users. So it coincides with a lot of the anecdotal evidence that we had heard over the 6 months, a lot of real positive feedback, and enthusiasm about the park. Some of the neat open-ended responses, because there was some themes. Just again, support of making a permanent dog park on the west side of town. We've heard that at various points throughout the last number of years. But I think the seeing it done and seeing the engagement at West Park kind of solidified that. Just general support, very positive. I think people realize that the dog park was a pop-up. It wasn't a permanent. They understand that there's going to be some goods and some bads with it, but they really enjoyed the social interaction and the ability and our willingness to include that. What was one of the things that was interesting is we know that parks provide a significant engagement to the rest of our community. It's a strong economic developer, but it was kind of neat to see that in some of the responses. And with individuals saying that in addition to being at the dog park, they're also finding ways to go to the local businesses nearby, and naming out some of the ones that are dog related, as well as food and other areas. So that was a really neat one. And then obviously there was also, with anything, there's always an opportunity for improvement. This is a baseball field or a softball field. It is designed as a softball field. And it is not designed as a dog park. So there are some things such as the infield was a little muddy. It drained in a certain way. And we also looked at this as a single focus for this year to see what the demand was. So there was not a separation between large and small dog areas, which is something that if this was a permanent dog park, we would be looking at. So that was kind of the specifics from the dog owners. We're going to speak a little bit about the neighbors. So much smaller sample size, only 10 responses, with 6 of 10s living within a mile. We did hear from some people living right on the park throughout this process. But we continue to work with them to find different ways to engage and to make that an overall positive experience. Even within that, 7 of the 9 residents rated it as a very positive experience and for the dogs and for the community. Well, 2 of the 9 really thought it was just neutral. They didn't have too many things, but they did. 9 of 10 were very supportive of adding additional dog parks within the city. Again, I mean, there's only a handful of comments, but ones that we like to see. I did not answer this, but this was always one of my feelings as well, is every time I drove past the park, and saw dogs out there running around and being utilizing space in a time when we otherwise would just be vacant, was really nice to see. Really enjoyed seeing that. And it was almost every time that I drove by, there were individuals. And so to see that kind of relayed by residents and neighbors who don't have dogs, is a nice opportunity, and nice to hear as well. So that's kind of the feedback we received. Some of the lessons that we learned, as I mentioned, the hours of operation, and basically they were 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. We saw various use throughout that. Pretty regularly there were people from that 9 to 10 o'clock hour, even in the cold winter when it's awfully dark, is something, I guess, if you work a long day and you need to get out and take your dog out, it's a great place to do that at. As I mentioned, infrastructure, this is a baseball field. I want to reiterate that from start to finish during this conversation. All of the infrastructure, whether it's lights, whether it's the infield, whether it's the fencing, are designed to be a softball baseball field, not a dog park. So with that, when we talk about lighting that took place in the winter months, obviously having lights at a dog park in the winter is very helpful because it gets dark at 5 and people want to use it until 10. The lights aren't designed for a dog park, they're designed for a baseball playing. So they were much brighter to begin with. Between Victor Morales and Scott Spooner and myself and a variety of park operations staff, we really worked hard to reduce down the light issues as they became relative. Because we understand that we want people to be able to use the dog park after hours, and then when it is dark on Vets Park during the winter, it is awfully dark, and so we want to make it a safe environment for there. Again, the infield is a baseball infield. It is a clayish red clay fill, which the dogs had no problems with. They definitely enjoyed running around in it and getting dirty. But it's one that we understand if there's a long-term solution there, we would look at doing something different than the clay that is there. Again, accessibility is always a concern that we look at in any amenity that we have. Due to the layout, the entrance was at the dugout. The parking lot was near the outfield, and getting from the outfield to the dugout was not a super easy path, and so that's something that we would look at moving forward, both if we do another pilot or if we look at something long term. And then also just the general layout. This is a big open space that all the dogs ran around together with. There'd be opportunities to evaluate how do we change the layout? Do we make an entrance someplace else? Do we make multiple entrances for small and large dogs? So those are some things that we will continue to evaluate and discuss, and depending on if we do a future pilot or if it becomes permanent at some point, those are all conversation that would be done through general conversations, engagement. And then just some general things that we learned. Obviously the permit, we learned a lot of facts. We talked with people. A lot of people didn't necessarily know that they needed a dog park permit or even a dog license. A lot of the COVID dogs owners are learning as they go with some of that. So I think that there is some education and some marketing and some things that we need to do. We've had internal conversations about the dog park licenses, which are handled by the clerk's office, as well as the dog park permits, and seeing if we can get those more in line. So it's a one-stop shopping if you have to get your dog license because their shots and their license is up. Maybe it's a way that we can have a rolling permit as well for the dog parks. With that, access, we knew that this was going to be a pilot. A lot of individuals were going to be learning what dog parks in Ann Arbor are. But we also run through the conversation of that, we know that at our other dog parks, we know that at dog parks across the country, there's a lot of individuals that use the dog parks without proper permitting. And there's always a balance of how do we make that work. And so as we look to do this, either long-term permanent, we would want to have a potentially a better way to control access to the dog parks to ensure that those that are included or that have participated can gain access to it. So it is a question that a lot of dog parks face, whether it's a key fob access or electric access. There's a variety of different things, but something we want to continue to look at long term with that. And the other thing that we noticed as staff is even though we had this Field 4 identified as a dog park, most days that I was out there, there were dogs and people on other fields as well, utilizing them as dog parks. And so it's a little disappointing that we make an effort to do this, but as some dogs, just like some people, are antisocial or want to be on by themselves, sometimes finding that individual space is something that they're looking to do. So again, education of what it means to have a dog park there, why we look to do it, and how do we push more people to utilize that. So that's everything that we've kind of done, we've learned. I think as I've shared through to many of you, I think that outside of this idea being a really people not attending, not utilizing it, being a pretty negative, that we anticipated doing a little bit more to continue to vet this as an idea. Oh, that was interesting. Vet this as a potential location long term. And so what we're going to do with that, we've worked with Rec and Ed over the 4th of July weekend. They don't have any games going on Field 4. So we are going to have a short-term weekend-long pop-up where we're going to invite the dogs and the people back out to the community, or to the community back out to it to utilize it again. On that Saturday, July 5th, we're going to have some fun activities and doing some things similar to the kickoff where we're looking to engage the community, get them back out, remind them of what the great experience this was, and then turn around relatively quickly to get it back up for softball, baseball on the 7th. That's the summer. And then, then the next part is the idea of a long-term pilot. We're going to continue to do some research on this, and we'll be coming back to pack with official kind of process with this. But our idea is, looking at about roughly an 18-month pilot that would start in November after this sports season ended, and continuing until the spring of 27. The reason that we're looking at that is, it's really easy to look at this during the winter when nobody else is utilizing the field. But, shared use between any groups can be challenging, and so realizing how does it work between a dog park and a baseball field and a softball field, just kind of seeing what the connections are there and what amenities need to be there. And in that, if we as we would move forward with that, we would incorporate some of the feedback that we've received from the initial pilot, such as the large and small dog areas, as well as some of the accessibility and different things that we looked at. And then we would really also look at having a much more formal public engagement to consider a long-term solution there. We've been working closely with Rec and Ed for them to understand the usage that is out there and how that usage would compare to potentially a long-term dog park solution there. We would weigh pros and cons, but then look at what other improvements and amenities are necessary with that. So that kind of spells out what the park staff are thinking long term, short and long term for this space. Because I do believe that those of you who have been on this committee for a number of years, we hear about a need and a want. Our pros plan talked about it. So I think that we have an opportunity where there's a piece of property that has a lot of the infrastructure that we need, but at the same time is potentially not utilized as much as we need as it could be. So it's an opportunity to kind of look at two options at the same time. So with that is kind of my presentation. And I'm happy to answer questions, talk more as necessary.
Thank you, Josh. All right, do we have questions or comments from the crowd? I have one. It's interesting to me that, like, I guess this works nicely because some baseball fields in the park system are fenced.
Mhm.
And so it's nice, kind of some, that's pretty important for the dog park part of it. But there aren't that many baseball fields in the city that are fenced like that. Is that right? I mean, the possibility of like trying it out in another neighborhood that currently doesn't have a dog park, what are the opportunities there?
Yeah. So it is something that we've talked about internally. The idea of pop-up dog parks, creating a mobile fencing unit that could go from, neighborhood park to neighborhood park to neighborhood park on a 2-week, 4-week type of schedule is something that we've kind of looked at and discussed. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's 5 fields at Vets. There's 2 fields at Bicentennial. There's another one at West, all kind of unique with that. I mean, plus the schools have a number of the middle schools, high schools have different things. So, it's working to find the right balance with that. And what are the options? And, it's looking at a space like this to determine usage. It's nice to have the need or the facility like a baseball field, but it's important that we're getting the actual use out of that space in a way that makes sense. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
that's going to always be the question of the best value. It was always the hard question. So
Yeah. It just really struck me that so many of the folks using it live within a mile of the dog park, and it can be tough. Like, you got to travel more than a mile to get to a dog park, and you get home late from work or whatever, and
yeah, and it is one we're looking at. It is one that it's finding the right balance of all of our things in our park. So
right. Larry, you have the floor.
Yeah, I have to say the numbers look great. I sort of by gut instinct walking past the park or driving by it always seemed like it was full. But those numbers look terrific. I wanted to ask what was the condition of the field when you were done? I mean, were you able to roll right back into softball, baseball?
I think, and Scott, you may be able to help with this a little bit. Victor isn't on this call. I mean, I think it took a little bit longer. I think we probably needed a little bit more time between the end to the end of the dog park to the start of the field. Is it championship level softball field on day one? No. Fortunately, we have 2 pretty good turf grass specialists between Scott and Victor who can work on it. I think we learned a lot between over this process as well. You know, Day one, was it going to be the best competition field? No. Was it good enough for practices for various things? Yes. So I think we have to work through that. I would probably, if we go through this long term, we moved into this long-term pilot, starting in the fall, I'd probably put a bigger buffer in between the end of the dog park and the start of any games there. But it's the discussion that we have with all of our spaces. Our job is as we maintain our spaces, we want to beat it up to the point where it is bad, and then we recover from there. And so I think that's always the point of how do we do it? What is too many soccer games? What is too many baseball games on any field? We've never gotten to that. Because we got pretty nice baseball fields, pretty nice soccer fields, so we want to find usage is the important thing. And so that's where we're going to be at. And I think part of that is also making sure that we educate all users on what the plan is. It's hard to get the information out, but making sure that our partners, our rental groups all understand that this is the plan, this is what we're looking to do, and this is how it's going to impact the future.
All right, Therese, you're next.
Yeah, not a question, just a statement. I live nearby and I heard so many great things about the dog park. So I wanted to thank you. I think sometimes, even though we knew we couldn't do it long term right away, it's sometimes easy to be like, okay, well, we're not going to do it because we can't figure out the long term. But I think this pilot project was a great way to kind of bridge that gap and appreciate the effort and the willingness to make it an opportunity.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, well, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing more dogs out there enjoying our parks along with their humans.
Great, thank you.
All right. Brings us to number 7 on our agenda. And first, 7A is our manager's report, and today it's going to be delivered by Scott Spooner.
So as Josh sent out with the agenda today, there was the Barton to Vandermeer tunnel project. The big headache for Hillary was done, the 48-hour track closure where they actually put the underpass under the track and put the track back together. Washtenaw County Parks and Recreation put on their YouTube channel a time lapse of that. And if you haven't watched it, you can either search for that in YouTube or click the link that Josh sent out. So the tunnel is not open yet, but the major construction hurdle has been passed. So we're looking to open that in the short-term future, and not exactly sure what the time frame is on that. Bicentennial Park, the splash pad project is underway. Site prep is taking place now. Construction scheduled to start later this month. The hope is it will be open in 2026. And if you have been outside, you know that summer is here. It has warmed up finally, and we've had some very busy days at the pools, especially. For the first time since COVID, we had a pool at capacity at Vets last Wednesday. It coincided with a half day for Ann Arbor Public Schools and a high 80-degree day. So we actually were at capacity at Vets, and all the other pools were very close. So summer being here, summer day camps at Fuller, Buer, Gallup, and Huron Hills have started during the week. And as you can imagine, Argo and Gallup for the river, kayaking, canoeing, and tubing are very busy. The golf courses, same thing. Today and yesterday, Leslie Park is hosting the American Junior Golf Association. They had 150 participants, 17 and under from across the country, and more than a few from international there today and yesterday. And then they'll be hosting the city championship in July and the senior city championship in August. And we also just recently picked up some portable pickleball nets. They are available to rent at Veterans Memorial Park. You can take the nets wherever you want to go, or the tennis courts that are right next to vets have some of the tennis courts are also striped for pickleball, although there are no nets permanently there. So now you can rent the net and play pickleball at vets.
Sounds busy.
Yeah.
Questions for Scott? All right. Doesn't look like there are. So yeah, well, I hope that summer continues to go along smoothly. I hope you don't have too many days where you have to turn away people at the pools. That's kind of tough.
Yeah, that is, I mean, the capacity at vets is 800 people, which is an amazing amount of people to have it at a pool. So
Yeah, it's amazing. All right, moving on to committees. Hannah, do you have a report from RAC?
I do not have a report today.
Okay. And then Environmental Commission, this is going to be our final Environmental Commission update because it is being replaced by the Sustainability Commission. We last met on May 22nd. We passed a resolution to ask the Planning Commission to include more protections for natural features in the upcoming comprehensive plan, and we discussed the bylaws for the new Sustainability Commission. That's about it. All right. Brings us to regular business, and our first item is a resolution to recommend the discharging of prohibited restrictions for Hanson Nature Area. And I believe Josh is going to present on that.
Yep. So as you all probably remember that just recently we added on to Hanson Nature Area through a donation by Midtown Condos. As we were doing our due diligence to review that and to get that added in, we learned that there was a prohibitive restrictive deed restriction on the original deed from Hanson Nature Area from the property. And as we have done at least once, I think it's maybe just once, within the parks, when we find these, we work quickly to get these resolutions together to remove them while there is no legal standing to them. Removing them from public spaces where we want our community to feel safe and welcome is a priority for this. So the way that this would work is that we go through PAC and through council to recommend this, and then we go take legal takes it to get that removed, and it is officially removed for all future options. So we're appreciative that this can take place relatively quickly. There's not a lot of exciting stuff with this other than we're doing what we can do to ensure that our parks are welcoming to all. So
All right. Any questions? Yes, go ahead, Larry.
What was the restriction?
It is, and I'll read. It was in the agenda, one of them. But the language is basically that only Caucasians can utilize the land. It's very typical deed restriction from many years ago, but the restriction of race, other ethnicities and races from the property. So again, lots of these are common, but we'll go from there.
Councilmember Watson.
I'll just note quickly that if anyone wants to know more about deed restrictions in Ann Arbor broadly, there's a group called Justice in Deed, led by Mike Steinberg over at the law school, that has been categorizing these. And so you can find that by Googling Justice in Deed, and you can see how many properties and what geographic area they've uncovered these covenants, and they're finding more every day. They actually take volunteers to help look through the records for these. So I appreciate Parks doing the due diligence on this and catching this, and I'm glad we can undo it.
All right. We have the resolution language in our packets. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution? Thank you, Larry. Second. Thank you, Vince. Any further discussion? All in favor of the resolution, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the resolution passes. And now, next item is a resolution to initiate a renaming process for Hanson Nature Area, related to the first one. So, back to Josh.
Yeah, so for those of you who remember, when we did the last discharging, it was at Almendinger. What we learned in that situation is that Almendinger, the individual, there were no restrictive deed restrictions on their properties. It was other ones that were part of the park. So we did not move forward with making a change because Almendinger, as the naming of the park, did not have the same situation. What we learned in this is that the Hanson family added this deed restriction to the deed when they made a transaction. So very proactively including a discrimination for their future property. And so based on that, a few years ago, we developed a renaming process following the Winchell Park renaming that really gave us the opportunity, once we found names or situations that we did not feel were consistent with our values, to initiate a process to do that renaming. Because this was intentionally done and added, we feel like this is the appropriate time to enact that renaming policy and process. And what that begins is that staff will begin the process of collecting names for potential renaming, and then work with a group, whether it is staff or most likely individuals from this group, as well as the community, to narrow that list down, to make a recommendation, then to take that to a vote of the general public, to see what is the right group. So it is the first time we've kind of done this since we kicked this off. So it's an exciting thing. Not because we need to rename something, but because we get to do something that many in this group actually voted on a few years ago. This resolution is really to give staff the go ahead to start this process, and then we'd be coming back to this group with a couple different things in the coming, in the next 6 months, both from potential names, as well as eventually a selection. So.
All right, any questions for Josh regarding how renaming works? All right, once again, there's a resolution in our packet. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution? Thank you, Vince. Do we have a second? Thank you, Larry. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed? All right, the resolution passes. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing some good naming options for this park. All right, that's it for our regular business. So we are on to the second public commentary period.
It looks like we possibly have somebody calling in with a phone number ending in 411.
Okay.
If
Yes.
you'd like to speak, you can raise your hand by pressing *9.
And yeah, and when you speak, just state your name and where you live. Have they raised their hand?
Does not appear that we have any callers for public commentary.
All right, thank you. Communications are in your packet for you to review. And that's it for our agenda today. Nice, kind of a short one today. So, yeah, we'll meet again in July, and this being the summertime. Oh, sure, yeah. see Josh.
Looks like that caller raised their hand, so.
Okay, yes.
And to unmute your, yourself, you can press *6 and go ahead and your 3 minutes will start.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, thanks for your patience on this, and forgive my dogs in the background. My name is James Dumore, and I live in the third ward of the city, and I'm a former Parks Commissioner. So thank you for your patience with me this afternoon. Just to say very quickly, I hear what happened at Leslie Park with the beaver situation. That's normally something I wouldn't call on for something that's so granular that we have at an administrative level. But I think we do need to continue to be more vigilant in terms of diversity, biodiversity, and we haven't had in, I think, as long as I can remember. I would hope that in this situation in the future, develop a policy of how to handle a bit better some of these new species that are coming in online. I realize it's a case-by-case basis. But I think for something like this, I don't think this was a good decision that was made. And I think that for something like this, a little more discretion should have been made, a little more patience had been made. I realize issues are that important when we're looking at the issue of park, that the city is otherwise, as a proud user of the park system on a daily basis, there, I would say that that we continue to discussing wildlife here.
So,
Thank you for calling in. I'm just going to jump in here. You broke up an awful lot during that call. If you have something that you wrote down or that you shared, please feel free to email it to me, Josh, or jlandefeld at a2gov.org, and I can pass that message along to the rest of to PAC so we can hear it, because obviously there's a lot of good things that you were saying, and we'd like to take that into consideration.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That was the only caller on the line, it looked like?
Correct. That was the only call.
Okay, all right. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, that concludes our agenda for today. So again, yes, it's summertime, a lot of people on vacation, that sort of thing. So if you do not believe you will be able to make the July meeting, please let Josh or me know as soon as possible so that we can plan accordingly. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everyone. Bye.